IT Insights InsurTalk. Interviews with insurance leaders about what matters to the industry.
Hi, I'm Eva Banaś. Welcome to another IT Insights InsurTalk episode by Future Processing. Throughout its 350 years of history, Lloyd has become the world's leading insurance marketplace. Its focus now is on building a braver future, one that is sustainable, resilient, and more inclusive. Part of that journey is created by the Future at Lloyd's program. Today, I have a pleasure to talk to Bob James, Chief Operations Officer at Lloyd's of London. Great to be here with you, Bob, and thank you for inviting us to this London's landmark, Lloyd's building.
It's good to have you here. Thank you.
Before we move on to the Lloyd's transformation as the focus of our talk, I wanted to touch upon one thing that I have recently learned about you. Is it true that you're a surfer?
No.
Okay.
Not now.
Not now. Maybe you were a surfer.
A long time ago when I lived in California and I had a full head of hair that was a lot longer and less gray, and I was a lot thinner and younger, I was a surfer, but that's a few lifetimes ago.
And how did it happen that a surfer from California actually ended up here in London, creating the future of insurance?
You know, that's actually a very interesting question, because I was having this conversation with somebody a few weeks ago to ask me how I ended up here. So I got into the insurance business at quite a young age in San Diego, California, working for a U.S. domestic insurance company. And like a lot of careers, I got promoted internally and took different jobs that led me all around the United States. And then in 2017, I had an opportunity to come work for a big insurer here in London. But never, ever in my wildest imaginations thought I'd end up at Lloyd's. And if you're in the insurance sector, there is a bit of panache to Lloyd's of London. Everybody sort of knows who it is. And so, and this is true, there's still mornings when I walk from the train station here, I think, how did the kid from San Diego who used to surf end up at Lloyd's? And I think it's, what's the old expression? Sometimes luck is hard work that meets opportunity. And, it's just, I had the great fortune of someone taking a chance on me.
Mm-hmm. That's a very good story, inspiring one. We never know where we end up actually in our careers and lives.
The older I get, the more most of the stuff you only see on hindsight, but you never know when you go through one door, what are the other four doors behind it. If you don't go through that one door, you'll never know. So my advice always is to people, go through that door.
Try.
Mm-hmm. Try.
Definitely. Together with the release of Future at Lloyd's prospectus, Lloyd's has redefined its purpose, sharing risks to create a braver world. Usually this kind of shifts require a lot of time to evolve and to grow. And I was wondering, what was the trigger that started it all? What was the factor, the story behind it that, the idea of digitalization at such a scale was born?
Well, I wasn't actually working for the Lloyd's Corporation when the original prospectus, or what we then called Blueprint 1, was issued. But I think it was a recognition that this marketplace had a lot of advantages in terms of a center of gravity of expertise for insurance. Depending upon what statistic you believe, I've heard that there's somewhere between 35,000 and 50,000 insurance professionals that all work within walking distance of each other here in London. You just don't see that. You don't see it in insurance anywhere else. The one place you would see it is if you went to Silicon Valley and made the correlation to the tech community in Silicon Valley. But I think there was a recognition that with all those advantages, it was hard to interact with us sometimes if you didn't have that experience. We wanted to attract new capital into the marketplace. The processes that we went about to place business were somewhat arcane. And as we all know, the world was changing and is changing at a very much faster pace and in a more unpredictable way. So we thought in order for Lloyd's to remain relevant, we needed to address those things and make the corporation and the marketplace a bit more nimble to respond to change.
And looking ahead at the closer future we have now, what are the immediate next steps for the market to uptake in case of digital transformation, digital journey you started?
It's like a lot of things in life. Things are easier said than done, but the concept is actually pretty simple. It's if you're going to transact business, could we all use the same language? I'm not speaking about English versus Chinese or some other language. I'm speaking about the language of data. So can we agree on a common set of data principles and data standards so that business can be transacted in a more common, seamless way using digital pipes to do so? And the advantage to doing that is a few things. One is the time to serve the customer shrinks. And generally speaking, customers rather have their service fulfilled sooner rather than later. The cost to service the customer becomes less. But probably most importantly, because you have a fulsome set of data that everybody agrees is the data we're going to use, the ability to then leverage that data for product innovation, for new ways to serve the customer becomes much, much easier. And I'll give you one example. Lloyd's writes about half of its business on a syndicated basis, which means there's one customer, but there's multiple risk takers. So if that one customer has multiple risk takers that are taking the risk, and the one customer has a claim, in order for us to validate who's on the risk and for what parts, you need to have a complete set of data. Without that, the ability to settle the claim, the claim still gets settled. It's just much more cumbersome, and it's probably a bit frustrating for the customer.
So it seems like data has become, or rather is becoming a lingua franca for like insurance industry from your perspective, from what you just said, right?
Yeah, yes. So the short answer is I think yes. And all you have to, if you wanted to get a corollary of what insurance might look like in 20 or 25 years, maybe less, look at what's happening in the consumer space. So look at what Amazon has been able to do around the way they sell consumer goods around the world. Pretty much anything you want, you can get on Amazon and get it delivered quickly. Underneath all of that is the ability to process data in a seamless way. And for us, and for the insurance industry, if you're processing data on paper and you have to then have that paper or some facsimile of it in order to serve the customer, it just slows things down. It increases the cost. And most consumers now have an expectation that it shouldn't be that way. It should be almost instantaneous, because that's what I'm used to when I go to the Amazon website or other consumer type websites.
Generally, world nowadays is going into the direction of customer centrism in all aspects. So definitely a way to approach it in insurance as well. One of the focus points at Lloyd is sustainability. And I was wondering, how will delivering Blueprint 2 actually help the long-term sustainability of the market?
Well, the insurance market, we like to think of the insurance, I think this is true for any business segment. People tend to think of a particular sector, whether it's the manufacturing sector, whether it's automobile manufacturing, whether it's travel, whether it's insurance, as the way it is today is the way it's going to be. And I don't think if you look back over 10 years in almost any segment, that's true, but that tends to be the starting model. And I think what's happening is people that can access, analyze, and leverage data on behalf of the customer for creating products or services are going to transform the existing model. So if you look at the InsurTech space, so all the startups that are trying to figure out how can they either improve the existing distribution model or the existing underwriting model, or how can they disrupt it, at the core of that, it's data and technology. And so I think from a Lloyd's perspective, or any other large insurance company, if you want to have a sustainable future, you have to be able to keep pace with that change. And Blueprint 2 is all about trying to make, as I said before, trying to make the marketplace more nimble and be able to change along with the faster changing, unpredictable world.
And on this path, on this journey, what were the biggest and perhaps most surprising challenges that you had to tackle?
Well, I said it's a syndicated marketplace, which means we have 50 plus insurance companies that do business in the marketplace. We have 300 plus insurance brokers that do business in the marketplace. We have 4,000 plus, we call them cover holders or managing general agents who are basically have the underwriting pen for other insurance companies on programs. So there's a huge amount of stakeholders. And then you've got the customer who actually buys the product. So when you're trying to design the future, you have to take into consideration what those stakeholders want and try to find the balance of, we want to change the marketplace for the better, but if you take on everybody's input, it's probably unexecutable because it becomes too big of a journey. If you try to get everybody to agree, you get to a lowest common denominator, which is not very transformative. So it's trying to find that right balance so that you can transform the marketplace, but the marketplace can come along with you and not feel like it's a bridge too far for them to execute. I think that's probably one of the big challenges. And of course, the other big challenge is you're talking about not just about the technology, but talking about changing people's behavior about how they actually transact business, the brokers, the underwriters, and ultimately the customers. And most people don't like to change their habits. And a lot of these habits about how business has been conducted have been habits that have been around for a long period of time.
Mm-hmm. And when you look at the insurance industry generally, what are the biggest pain points? Does those challenges you've just mentioned translate also to the whole industry, or would you identify any other?
This is my point of view. If you look at the insurance industry from the standpoint of consumer-oriented products, to small business insurance products, to more complex products, to multinational exposures, generally as you go up that curve, the people that have been serving consumer products have understood the data journey for a long period of time. Most of that processing is automated, seamless, instantaneous. It's using artificial intelligence and other things to make risk decisions and service the customer. As you go up that curve, partly because of complexity and partly because these things become more bespoke in terms of the products you're providing, it becomes harder to do that. So I think what we're trying to do is to imitate or to emulate what's happened in the small commercial and consumer side on the more complex risk side, understanding that at some point it becomes difficult, but how can you move up that curve? Because if I own a business and I buy my auto insurance online and it takes me 5 minutes, and then I go to buy my business insurance and it takes me 5 months, my expectations aren't met. So maybe you can't get it from 5 months to 5 minutes, but maybe you can get it from 5 months to 5 days.
And let's say it's already Q2 2024. Blueprint is already implemented, up and running. You look at the marketplace, you look at the industry. What do you see?
Well, if it's second quarter of 2024 and it's done, I see myself on a beach somewhere with
in California,
with a very
perhaps.
nice cold drink with an umbrella in it. I think we see what I would say is the foundation. It's really the foundation for the future. It's not the complete future. So we'll have a common set of data. We'll have a digital way to transact it. Costs will start to go down. Customers will see time to serve shrink. They'll see things like improved ability to settle claims. I think that's the foundation. I think once that's in place, what we're going to see, because of the entrepreneurial nature of this marketplace, is then people are going to say, now, how do we innovate using that data? How do we find new ways to bring customers to the Lloyd's marketplace? How do we find new ways to bring capital to Lloyd's marketplace? And how do we find new ways to use this data to develop products that don't exist today? So it's not that it's not a lot of work to get there, but I don't think that's the end of the journey. I think that just provides the foundation that the marketplace should then be able to build upon.
Mm-hmm. And looking at the marketplace, at the syndicates, what will be the next steps for them to actually fulfill the vision you've just outlined, and what will be the next steps after that?
So they or their technology providers, it's probably a bit of a combination, will have to make sure that they can consume this common set of data that's going to be created by the brokers and that will be used during the placement process. The good news is that we are using a industry set of data standards through a firm called Accord. So it's not like we've created something bespoke for the London insurance market, but they'll need to be able to consume them, those on their own systems, which I think will make their processes a bit more efficient in terms of the amount of labor it takes to get that done. And then once they have that data in their systems, along with the other data that they're already collecting, it's, I know I've probably said this several times, but it's, well, what are we going to do with this data to make better risk decisions, to better serve the customer, to figure out new ways to get business into our syndicate, and to come up with new product innovation. And I'll give you an example that I find fascinating. It's not directly related to Blueprint 2, but I went to a meeting probably about 9 months ago now, and this gentleman shows up, and he's carrying a 5-foot-long PVC plastic pipe with a cap on both ends and holes in the bottom of it. And I met him. I said, "What's that?" And he said, "This is a insurance product." I said, "What do you mean by that?" He said, "Well, inside of this pipe are 3 things: a float goes up and down, that's connected to some electronics that knows how much it went up and down, that's connected to a cellular modem that takes that movement and sends it to a central service to capture how much the float went up and down." I said, "Well, okay, but what does that really mean in practical reality?" So we go into factories or people's homes or people's businesses, and we put these around the piece of property. And if there's a flood, we know, was it 5 inches of water? Was it 2 feet of water? And we pay out based upon the depth of the water. That's a product that didn't exist. And it's not because of Blueprint 2, but it's because the combination of technology, data, and innovation. And I think that's what we're going to see as Blueprint 2 comes to a conclusion.
It's like this holy trio for the future of insurance, probably.
Yeah, which I think you see in other segments as well.
And looking at the situation now, what excites you the most about the marketplace?
Well, I used to be, in most of my career, I was a customer to Lloyd's, where I would come here to buy reinsurance, which is insurance that insurance companies buy to protect their own balance sheet, or where I was looking for capacity as a broker. So I was sort of a customer of the marketplace. The thing that I always found fascinating about this marketplace, like if you go down to our underwriting floor, is the fact that I could walk around with a London broker and take a very complex set of risks and get a lot of people to be willing to sign up for it. And there's some underlying entrepreneurialism in this marketplace that, and I'm not trying to pick on any other marketplace or any other insurance company, that is probably unique to the London insurance market. Like I think, for example, we wrote the first cyber policy at Lloyd's. We found a way to insure vaccines as they were being transmitted around the world by COVID by using some technology and data. I don't, because it sounds trite to say entrepreneurial, but the entrepreneurial nature of 50 plus insurance companies, 300 brokers, 4,000 cover holders who are trying to serve a set of customers is something that you don't see in the insurance sector, I don't think, anywhere else in the world.
Mm-hmm. I think this is exactly what makes this marketplace, so unique and special.
Yes.
In the world, actually. Thank you, Bob, for sharing your insights with us today. And thank you, our audience, for listening to yet another IT Insights InsurTalk episode by Future Processing. See you next time.
IT Insights talks on business and IT challenges with tech leaders. Visit us at itinsights.tech and dive into our podcasts, webinars, and events.